My name is Ben Klang. I'm the founder of Adhearsion, a company out of Atlanta, Georgia. We build voice applications. And I'm here to talk to you today about state-of-the-art telephony with Ruby. So first, I just want to ask, who in here has actually tried to build a voice application? Cool. Okay. Does anyone have it in production? Awesome. Okay. So, and my next thing I wanted to ask is, who thinks this is true? Yeah. Using Asterisk, that's true. Yeah. Okay. So I don't want to freak you out, so I'm going to show you some Ruby code. This is the comfort zone. It's happy, easy, pretty. You can see we have really easy methods, and we have a little ActiveRecord in there. So I just want to make sure, let you know that this is not going to be a crazy talk about the internals of like ISDN. It's not that. Okay. So I'm the maintainer of the Adhearsion project. Has everyone here heard of Adhearsion? Know what it is? Cool. Okay. So Adhearsion is a voice application development framework. It's really the only of its kind in the open source world. It's like Rails is a web framework, or rather a framework for web application development. Adhearsion is a framework for telephony application development. It's more than just an API. It gives you a lot of stuff. It gives you thread management for all the different calls that are coming through. It gives you an eventing subsystem. It gives you a plugin system so you can add new functionality, and it handles demonization. So it's actually a full kit for writing a telephony application. It's also completely independent from Rails, so it can run standalone, but it also can integrate with Rails. So I'm guessing a lot of you, this being a Ruby conference, have written Rails apps and have a lot of investment in big models and helpers in Rails. Adhearsion can load your Rails application, load in all of those helpers, load in all those models, and reuse a ton of code right out of the gate. So it integrates really nicely. So what this means is Adhearsion is voice applications done the Ruby way. So I want to talk for a minute about what Adhearsion's features are. On that third slide, you can see the beginning of our DSL, domain-specific language. Most of the telephony stuff is abstracted to simple things like answer, hang up, speak, play a recording, things that are very straightforward, easy to read through when you're actually reading through the code. And it is all native Ruby code. There's no magic here. It's all classes and methods, just like you're used to. You can unit test it, and then use all the same tools you would to develop a web application, except a browser. Adhearsion also has a powerful eventing system. So in addition to the procedural code you might write to interact with your caller, you also get a stream of events coming off the telephony application. Things like every time a new channel is established, things like every time a button is pressed on the keypad, you get an event for that. When a person joins a conference or leaves a conference, and we'll do some demo of how that looks in just a minute. It also has really advanced voice features, so we can take advantage of high-level constructs. As part of the DSL, we wrap up some of the common patterns in voice application design, such as an IVR menu. In an IVR menu, you might need to play a prompt, and then you have 3 or 4 options, and you want the user to pick from one of these options. And if they give you something that's not one of those options, you want to give them a chance to try again, maybe playing them a message like, hey, we really wanted you to press 2. So the menu abstracts that. Instead of having to write all that logic, you set up a menu and you say, I want 1 to go to this piece of code and 2 to go to this piece of code, and it's all built into the DSL. We also have support for queues and conferences. So when you have a caller, you can just join it to a queue, much like you would a Ruby queue, or stick it into the queue. And we also have, for conferences, you can join a caller to the conference and mute, unmute, all that stuff. Adhearsion also has support for text-to-speech. So we can render speech through any of the several speech engines. To do that, we have to take advantage of the telephony layer, plus we integrate something called Ruby Speech, which is a library that will generate something called SSML, which is speech synthesis markup. You don't need to use it if you don't want it, but if you do want it, it gives you a ton of control over things like the rate at which the text is rendered, the intonation throughout the speech. You can change the voice, you can change most of the characteristics of the text itself through SSML. We also have some beginning support for voice recognition. Voice recognition, again, is usually a telephony platform feature. And you can feed it grXML, which is the grammar. And both of these, by the way, are industry standard. It's not like we invented any of this stuff. But grXML is so you can specify what kind of things you're going to ask. So when you ask a user, what's your favorite color, then you might expect an actual color back as opposed to, say, puppy dog. So the grammar, you can express that and make sure you're getting the right input back, or play them an error message. The Ruby speech library, which is a companion project to Adhearsion, is a Ruby way of generating both SSML and grXML, and makes it very easy in a Ruby native kind of way, using actually no gear to generate these and make them easy to use. And Adhearsion also supports call progress and answering machine detection. So if you're not familiar with call progress, if you're placing an outbound call, you want to have running status of what the call is doing. You want to know if the call is ringing, you want to know when it's answered, you want to know when it's hung up. You also want to know if an answer machine is picked up. Adhearsion has features to pick up on this feedback and allow you to make decisions as the call goes, what to do next. So let me talk just for a minute about the architecture of Adhearsion. Everything does start with a phone call, and that phone call has to go somewhere. So we have Asterisk. And how many of you in here, I heard somebody mention Asterisk earlier, but how many of you in here have heard of Asterisk? Okay, cool. And how many are actually using it or try to use it? Right, okay. So the cool thing about Asterisk is it's open source, it's free. You can run it on your own server, and you have the ability to, well, it's widely deployed. A lot of organizations already have an Asterisk server running. So if you're looking to add some voice application, there's a decent chance you already have an Asterisk box somewhere. And it does also have, as I mentioned, the eventing system. We'll cover more in a bit. But it does have downsides. I mean, Asterisk is not the easiest thing in the world to set up. It's not the easiest thing. It's great. I don't want to, but and there are distributions that make it a lot easier. Like, you know, PBX and Flash or TrixBox or any of those. Adhearsion is compatible with those. In fact, there's an article on my blog about how to go about integrating those. So it can be done, but it does take some more expertise than average. The other disadvantage to Asterisk is that it does not ship with text-to-speech or speech recognition. It is available. There are open source packages that do it. They're okay. There are really good implementations that are commercial, so you do have to license those. So Asterisk can do it, but it doesn't come with it out of the box. As an alternative, Adhearsion also speaks to Tropo, and it does it with all the same. Actually, the code is almost entirely portable. If you write an app against Asterisk using AGI, chances are that app will port to Tropo with no code changes. The advantage of Tropo is it's really easy to set up. You can sit down and sign up for a new account and allocate a phone number. 5 minutes later, you've got phone calls running into Adhearsion. It really almost couldn't be simpler. Another advantage of Tropo is that it has awesome text-to-speech and speech recognition out of the box. No additional fees for that. It's something you get as part of the Tropo service. And of course, if you're not familiar with Tropo, I'm sorry if I skipped over this. Tropo's in the cloud, so there's no servers to run. You deal with that directly. Tropo also has SMS and international support. Asterisk does not do SMS directly. If you want to send text messages, you need to have some kind of third-party provider to actually do the text messaging. With Tropo, you can actually do that as part of the normal Dialplan application. The disadvantage of Tropo is it's cloud, so all of the standard anti-cloud arguments would apply if you have privacy concerns or if you have concerns about infrastructure not being available. Maybe Asterisk is a better choice. The other disadvantage of Tropo is it does not come with any prompts. Asterisk comes with a really nice, rich library of sound files, and we use them all the time. But with Tropo, you have to provide all of your own. You can make them available, but it's an extra step you have to take. As a side note, Jason wanted me to mention, 1 year ago, he presented here on Adhearsion with Agitate, and he actually wrote the first version of the integration between Tropo and Adhearsion on the flight here, and actually had it released as a working demo. Well, in the year that's passed since, we've gotten a lot better with the integration. We have nearly 100% coverage of the AGI spec. It's all tested and working, and we actually do now have production customers running on Adhearsion and Tropo. So it's a really great platform, especially for startups. Yeah?
Does Tropo give you access to the SIP layer?
It does, yeah. You can actually call, Tropo allows you to call in using SIP. And so the question was, does Tropo allow you to access using SIP? And if you're not familiar with SIP, it stands for Session Initiation Protocol. It's the de facto standard for voice over IP calls. And so the two ways you would use it are to call into Tropo or to call out of Tropo to a SIP endpoint, and both are supported. Okay, so after the call comes in, you need to, the call comes from Asterisk or Tropo into Adhearsion, which is where your code is going to be running. And then Adhearsion talks to any of a variety of backends. It can talk to any SQL server supported by ActiveRecord, so you have access to all of those models. It supports LDAP through ActiveLDAP. It supports XMPP and Java for instant messaging, which has some really cool integrations that we'll demo in a minute. And of course, if you can't find the data in one of those first three sources, just about anything else you can get using a REST call. So really, the best part about Adhearsion is, if you need more functionality, just install the gem and use that code. So in honor of LSRC, because this conference has always been a great supporter of Adhearsion, we're actually going to be releasing Adhearsion 1.2 today with some pretty cool new features. Yeah. Cool. This is pretty exciting. This is actually a result of a partnership with two of our clients to really improve the text-to-speech support, and we've been testing it with them, and really happy with how it looks. So it's live today. There's a blog post on my website that talks about some of the new features, and of course there'll be release announcements, but just wanted to let you guys know. The Dialplan is the file in Adhearsion that controls, it's the very first thing that's consulted when the call comes in. All the basic rules of what to say and when to say it and which parts of code that you want to access is all done in the Dialplan. So the console, the Adhearsion console is a lot like the Rails console. The Rails console is great because you can start it and you have a full Rails environment that's loaded all of your models and all of your helpers, and you can test some code just right there. The Adhearsion console is the same thing. It loads up the full Adhearsion environment and it gives you access to all of those models. So components are Adhearsion's plugin framework. They give you the ability to add in code, to reuse code, and to share code. Fundamentally, components are something that you stick in your application. But since Adhearsion 1.0, which is almost a year ago now, you can also install components via gems. So one example of that is the formerly Hoptoad, now Airbrake service. We have a gem that you can install on Ruby gems. It's still called AHN Hoptoad. But you gem install that, and you drop a piece of config YAML in the config directory, and it uses that functionality. In this case, what would happen is any exception that was encountered by your Adhearsion application would be reported to Airbrake. So components are an awesome source of stuff you don't have to write, which I'm a fan of. And we do have a website that is a repository of community contributed components. We have a small collection. I would say it's growing, and we would love new contributions, and that can be found at ahnhub.com. And all this stuff is linked from our website, by the way, which I'll show at the end. So I hope you have found this really interesting. I'm passionate about this stuff. I think it's the coolest thing since sliced bread. And if you think that it's pretty cool too, we have a conference in October in San Francisco. Thanks to our sponsor, Voxeo Labs. It is a free conference. You just have to get yourself there. It will be 2 days of presentations by the Adhearsion developers, as well as presentations by companies who actively use Adhearsion in some pretty interesting ways. We'll also have some time for pair programming for any of you who want to prototype something and figure out how it works. And we had a great time last year. I'm looking forward to it again this year. I think it's one of the things that's awesome about Adhearsion is how strong our community is. We have an active mailing list, an active IRC channel, and of course with the convention. So this is an exciting project, and there's lots of stuff to be done here. So that's all I've got for you. If you would, I would appreciate feedback on the speaker rate page. And I would also like to mention the Adhearsion website has links to documentation, API docs, wiki docs. I've also got a link to my website here at Mojolingo, and on our blog we have screencasts for configuring Adhearsion with Trixbox. We also have screencasts about the Adhearsion console. There's lots of resources out there, and of course, please feel free to reach out to me.